Hello, beauty. I am Jennifer Ness Schmid coming in as Divinely Jennifer, and we are going to be talking about Venus retrograde, Mary Magdalene, sacred rage, and the wounded feminine, the wounded masculine. I'm going to be dropping some F-bombs. So if you have the kiddos around, you might want to watch this a little later. I'm so happy to finally be coming on video to share with you all because I have had laryngitis for the last 2.5 weeks. I sent out a newsletter to my crew about it. I know it comes from not speaking my truth. And so I had to speak my truth, and there's more truth to be spoken, let me tell you. With this Venus retrograde that starts on Saturday, July 22nd, it starts at, standby, I did not write this down before I started the video, starts at 6:32 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So it'll be Friday night for those of us in North America, and Saturday if you're in parts of South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia. This Venus retrograde, she's going to be moving, she's traveling through Leo. It is an incredibly personal, very personal retrograde because Leo is all about art, creativity, sensuality, romance, our self-expression, our children, what we have birthed or what we're birthing. And even sexuality in some way different from Scorpio energy. Leo is very much like out there, right? So the sun will be moving into Leo right after Venus stations retrograde. And that's so much, the sun loves Leo because this is all about shining our light. You know, it's the peak of summer for those of us here in the Northern Hemisphere. And what's coming up for a lot of us is this energy around sacred rage, or what my Qigong teacher Dave calls righteous anger. And sometimes we'll feel anger or rage, and it's just a reaction to something that maybe we're feeling in our body or we took something personally. This is different. This is, there's a right to it. This is something that has been upwelling, not just for hours, days, years. This has been upwelling for millennia. And I know from talking to a lot of you that many women and men are going through some really bad breakups right now. I know for myself, I'm super pissed off because someone is not fucking respecting my boundaries, and even my son. So this has nothing to do with gender. It's not about, women being mad at men, although it definitely has that aspect of masculine and feminine to it, which I'll talk about and why that is. But like even my son is pissed right now. Like my son, I see him, he's 19. He's experiencing that sacred rage on my behalf because he's seeing my boundaries be violated. And it very, very much is about violation. We're seeing this a lot in our culture right now. You see it through movies like Sound of Freedom, through that new Netflix movie that came out last month as well called Taking Care of Maya, which is about medical kidnapping, which is another form of child abuse and child trafficking in our country. It is very, very real. How does this all tie to Venus retrograde? All right, so something really important to note is that this Venus retrograde, so here in the West, in the Western Hemisphere, Venus is stationing retrograde on July 22nd. July 22nd is Mary Magdalene's feast day in France. And from many of you that I talk to, we all have this very sacred connection to Mary Magdalene. And one of the aspects around this Venus retrograde is that we are done. We are tired of the truth around Mary Magdalene being suppressed, right? We know innately in our bones that Mary Magdalene was not the prostitute she was made out to be, right? She was Jesus's, Yeshua's wife and partner. and they were partners in their last lives together. She taught side by side with him. And there were many aspects of the wounded masculine that did not want the feminine. At the time when Yeshua and Mary Magdalene were alive, women had very, very few rights at the time in the Western world, in Israel, in Rome. We were basically property. As Yeshua and Mary were teaching partners together, that went against the status quo, because it took power away because the wounded masculine saw it as taking power away. And so what we're now witnessing is that we've reached this tipping point of mostly women, not all, but mostly women who have this deep tie to Mary Magdalene. So many of us are feeling this call to go to places like the south of France, which is where Mary Magdalene went, right? We're watching videos about all of these sacred sites. You hear about the Cathars, which was a culture in Europe dedicated to protecting the story of Mary Magdalene and her teachings that she came to France to teach. And many of us feel connected to Avalon and Glastonbury and to the Arthurian stories. We're ready. We're basically done with all of these truths being suppressed, and we're ready to come together now on behalf of Mary Magdalene and speak these truths, because there's this up-leveling of this energy coming. And I believe we've reached a tipping point, and that's why so many of us are ending our relationships, our intimate relationships, whether that's after 6 months, a year, 2 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it's been really challenging for a lot of us because we're working with people who have narcissistic tendencies. I've talked a lot about narcissism in the past. And so these narcissistic tendencies where there is zero respect for boundaries, it's all about power and manipulation and control. But we've had enough. And so we're feeling this rage. So as I mentioned, this is a very personal Venus retrograde. She goes retrograde on Saturday, the 22nd, at least here in the Western Hemisphere, around 28 degrees of Leo, and she'll backtrack to 12 degrees of Leo, goes from July 22nd to September 3rd. During this time, I think a lot of us are going to feel this rage coming. I think we're already feeling it. The energy of a mama lion, this energy of protecting our young, protecting our children. Again, this speaks to some of the popularity of movies like Sound of Freedom, because we're done. We've reached that point where we're not going to let children be exploited anymore. And anyone, frankly, who speaks out against these truths, they got to look inward, right? And say, okay, why am I defending child trafficking? Or is it so painful? I remember with my father when 9/11 happened, and I was asking him to look at things from a different perspective. He said, it's too painful for him, this country where he served in the military, to think that some of these things could have happened on our soil was just too painful for him to admit. So maybe that's you. Maybe it's too painful for you to admit that sex trafficking, child trafficking is real. But for those of us who have our eyes open, we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. We're feeling this up-leveling of the sacred rage. And we're going to be navigating this territory in totally new ways with this Venus retrograde. I think it really is time for the truth to come out, and really for us to come together as soul brothers and soul sisters. Again, this is not about gender. It's not about only women being outraged or just men being outraged. This is about soul outrage and sacred outrage, where, we've been burned at the stake life after life, and maybe we were the one burning at the stake life after life. But here we are now in 2023. And we're ready to lead the way. We're ready to see change. And it's okay to express your rage. Ideally, to let it out through creativity, art, dance, music, break shit if you need to. That is okay. You know, purge the house, right? Take a bunch of stuff out to Goodwill or put it out on the curb. I know, like, we actually have a big trash pickup here in the Phoenix area in the next couple of weeks, and I have a lot of shit that is going to be out on that curb, ready to go into the dumpster bin. But we have to let it out, because otherwise, if we don't, we will internalize it. And so as a metaphysical healer, I'm actually experiencing this in myself right now, right? Where I have this laryngitis and I have this hoarseness because I was really struggling to speak my truth. I was really struggling to set boundaries. And what happened? It went right here to my fifth chakra, my point of divine communication. And it can manifest in our heart, in our bellies, in our wombs, in our third eye, can manifest in all sorts of different ways physically. If we do not express this rage, it doesn't mean to go yelling and screaming as much as we might like to. I get it. Doesn't mean going out and yelling and screaming at somebody in a state of reaction. So let it out creatively. I was telling my daughter, I'm like, where are the painting canvases? Because I'm dying to paint here. And I'm not an artist. I'm a musician. Like, I'm not a very good drawer or painter. I have zero training, but I have this need to express myself through color. That is very much the energy of Leo. And it's very much the energy of this Venus retrograde. So allow yourself to express in color, whether that is, again, through art or dance or music, however it might be. Tantra, breath work, however that manifests for you. But you got to let this shit out. We don't have to be nice anymore. This is something that I was raised like. You had to be nice on the outside. You could talk shit about people. Like, you could stab them it was okay to talk badly about people, but you had to be nice on the outside. My love, those days are done. We do not have to be nice. We can bless people on their journey. Absolutely. We can work on love and forgiveness, starting with ourselves, right? Starting with ourselves for not keeping those boundaries. I think that's where a lot of the rage comes up. It's like, God, why is it taking me so fucking long? Why is it taking me 52 years to set some of these boundaries for myself? And then there's a lot of sacred rage around that as well. Set those boundaries so that you can live and express, from your heart. Really express from your heart. Let it out. Be creative, dance, gather in circle with your circle. And if you don't feel like you know where your circle is, oh, honey, let me tell you, there are so many of us who are rising up. And I'm happy to hop on a connection call with you. That's always at divinelyjennifer.com/connection. You can always book a call for me. Just a quick community gathering call, let's connect. I don't know what's happening right now. That's totally okay. The other aspect about this Venus retrograde that I want to address is that Black Moon Lilith is also in Leo at the same time as Venus. And so you can think of, from an astronomical, from an astronomy perspective, Black Moon Lilith represents when the moon is furthest from the earth. From a more allegorical sense, she's like, if you know the myth of Inanna and Ereshkigal, so Venus and Inanna are very tied together. You can think of Black Moon Lilith as Ereshkigal. She is that dark side of the feminine, where we as the feminine, we do some crazy shit sometimes, especially if we're coming from a place of wounding, not from a place of sacred rage, perhaps, but from that anger that's not righteous, or we feel like we're a victim, right? The minute we stepped into victim mentality, we give away our power. And that is going to be coming up with this Venus retrograde as well. So be really mindful. I want to assure you, I want to really reinforce, we are never the victim. ever. There are some people doing some evil fucking shit in this world, and we are never the victim. When we step into victimhood, we give away our power. So you can observe that energy inside yourself if you're feeling it, right? It can be really easy to step into a victim mode because someone isn't respecting your boundaries, but that's not what we're being asked to observe that and then transmute it and to step into our power and to acknowledge within ourselves, this is a hard and firm boundary that I'm going to keep now and forever, and to communicate that and make it very clear. Because what happens when we go into when we don't honor that boundary, then we're enabling people to step over us, to step on us, to step over our boundaries, right? You got to do you. That's so much the energy of Leo, right? If you want to wear rainbow tights, you go for it. But you can't get pissed off that people are criticizing you for wearing rainbow leggings or rainbow tights. Like, we just have to get over it. We have to express ourselves. So this is a really good time to write your inner child a letter and acknowledge all of the ways that your self-expression may have been wounded in the past by others, and how now, through this Venus retrograde, through this portal we are all going through, and it's not a coincidence, my loves, that the Lionsgate 888 portal is also happening during this Venus retrograde. Write yourself a letter, your inner child a letter, and acknowledge all of the ways, all of the wounds, and all of the incredible healing you have already done in this life, and that you're going to continue to do. Let yourself be that fierce lion, confident, colorful, loud, courageous, bold. The world needs us. The divine feminine and the divine masculine need us. Mary Magdalene, her story, her lineage, of which so many of us are a part, need us to now start speaking our truth, to start coming together and overcoming this dark polarity that lives within each of us and is so prevalent in our world. I truly believe we are at this tipping point. I know I try to be all about like light and love and blah, blah, and that's all good too. It is important for us to move out of resentment, to move out of our anger into a place of forgiveness and love. But when we move into that place of forgiveness, it doesn't mean letting people walk all over us. As we forgive ourselves first, then we can forgive others. As Jesus said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And so many people know not what they're doing because they're not awake. But if you're watching this video, I know you're awake. You have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And when someone sets boundaries with you, you respect that. And you hold firm to what is right and true for you on your path. So I'm not even going to apologize. I'm sorry, this isn't like a light love, all is good in the world kind of video. My loves, we are going to go through it for the next 6 weeks. And we're going to go through it together. I am here. There are so many sacred sisters and brothers walking through this with you. We're all going through our heroine's journey, our hero's journey. So feel free to set up a call if you need some help at www.divinelyjennifer.com/connection. Thank you to those of you who have donated to my coffee page, which I'll post the link below. Anyone who donates $50 or more to coffee, to my little coffee, buy me a coffee, is getting a complimentary Venus retrograde reading. I'm putting that out in email since I don't have a whole lot of voice just yet, but let me tell you, my voice is coming and it's going to be stronger than ever. So watch the fuck out. That's all I have to say. Thank you also for your likes and shares and subscribes. I love you. Hang in there, my friends. You can make it through this. I know you can. I know we can. We owe it to our lineage. We owe it to our ancestors, and we owe it to the new earth. And I'll see you the next time. I am Divinely Jennifer.